purchase process. And the step 5 is the closing period. What happens during this time? So we've come through and completed your inspection contingencies, we've gotten your appraisal taken care of, and now the loan has been approved by your lender. What happens next?
Yeah, great question. So after your final loan approval, pretty much what we're going to set up to do is sign your final loan documents. This is where the lender is going to generate a big package, and they're going to send it over to your escrow company, and they're going to appoint a notary to meet with you to sign your loan documents. And in the loan documents, basically what we're looking at is finalizing what your interest rate is going to be for the next 30 years if you choose a 30-year loan, what your monthly payment is, how you're going to hold title, what your closing costs are, and when your first payment date is, right? And that's your loan documents. After the loan documents are signed, you usually wire in or send in the rest of your funds, right? Because remember, in the beginning, you sent in your earnest money deposit. So you'll send in the rest of your money, and then the bank will send in their money, and that's what we call funding, right? So usually funding happens the day after we sign loan documents.
So we sign loan docs on one day, fund on the next.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you're signing, then you're funding the next day, and after you're funding, the following day takes place. If you're in LA County, you're recording.
So it can't all happen in one day. Signing, funding, closing, or recording, sorry, no?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because unfortunately in LA County, we cannot fund and record on the same day due to the county just being so big and only 2 recorders offices in LA County, one in Lancaster and the other one in Norwalk. It's just too much.
Too much processing going on.
Yeah.
But
The
it
workload's
can
so high.
happen in Ventura County, right?
Yeah. So Ventura, Orange, San Bernardino, Riverside, pretty much the rest of California, you can fund and record on the same day, right? And so funding, again, is basically you bring in the rest of your money for your down payment completion, and then the lender bringing in their money to escrow to fulfill the rest of that loan, so the seller can get their full amount and do whatever it is that they need to do, right?
Right. Another thing that happens in this closing period is within 5 days of the actual closing date, we're going to do a final walkthrough. So your agent's going to take you and help you walk through the house to make sure it still looks the same as it did when you made your initial offer. You're also checking for whether or not repairs were made. If you made any requests for repairs to be made, those need to have been taken care of.
Yeah.
And the final walkthrough is also a great time for buyers and sellers to meet to, if it's been a good transaction and you want to meet them, it's a great time to meet the sellers and to have the sellers give you guidance on the house, how to use it, where things are, how the neighborhood is, who are the neighbors, stuff like that.
A little like a gossip column of the transaction, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And and the other thing is that this happens pretty fast. Even though it's 3 days and everybody wants their keys now, and sellers want their money now. The whole takeaway from this part of the transaction is flexibility, right?
Absolutely.
Pretty much, you want to have flexibility, even though you want to work fast, you want to have momentum during the whole transaction. You do want to be flexible, right? There's so many different parties involved. We talked about escrow, title. We got the government involved. We got notaries involved, agents, lenders, sellers, right? So sometimes what can happen is that maybe a seller can't show up on time or can't get a document signed.
Right, there can be delays during the process that could take closing a couple days later.
Right.
Or sometimes, I feel like when working with Lewis, we end up closing a little bit earlier.
Sometimes we're pushing to close sooner, right? So it just, again, you have to be flexible even to close sooner. And sellers love it, but sometimes they can't do it. But the whole idea is,
flexibility.
Yeah.
So even though at the beginning we say we're going to close on this date, it may happen a few days before, it may happen a few days after. And so just kind of keeping that window of time open around your close date in your schedule so that you can be available for the signing, for your final walkthrough, all the things that kind of need to happen at the end.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I mean, and anytime that flexibility needs to be flexed, right? We just want to communicate, right? So if we're going to be late a couple of days from what the contract says, we want to explain why. It'll make sense. If we're going to be earlier, hey, that's great news in most cases. We just want to let everybody know, hey, we want to close early. Is that okay with you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then possession of the property will happen on the day of recording at 5 p.m. typically, unless something else was negotiated in the original contract. And you may get keys on that day, or maybe the seller needed a rent back and they're going to stay in there a little bit longer. But typically 5 p.m. on the day of recording is when you, the buyer, get your keys.
Awesome. And do they usually meet with the agent to get their keys, or how does that work out?
It kind of works out different every time, but I like to be there to give my buyers the keys in person. That's just the kind of service that I provide.
Okay, cool. So flexibility again, right?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome.
Well, I think this is
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Thank you so much
so
for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. I hope this was helpful. If you need to reach us, if you have questions about the home buying process or want to get started, you can reach me at laurenmurdock.com. And where can they reach you?
Yeah, thanks so much. So again, I appreciate your time. Appreciate being able to send some information out to you guys. You can reach me on my website at loansbylou, that's LOANSBYLOU.com.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you.